This morning in Augusta, representatives from various Maine college organizations spoke in front of a joint session of the Maine House and Senate. The University of Maine system began the ceremony giving details about the growth of Maine's colleges and comparing to surrounding states. They say Maine's public universities have increased enrollment in the past 4 semesters, adding that UMaine costs about 40% less than public state schools in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Vermont. They also made a plea to lawmakers to continue to fund these educational organizations through the biennial budget.
I call on you to sustain the level of funding for UMS proposed in the governor's biennial budget and recently endorsed by the bipartisan majority of the Education Committee. Your doing so is critical to our ability to maintain student access and achievement and to mitigate the impacts of compensation and inflationary increases on tuition payers.
Speakers also included the interim president of the Maine Maritime Academy and the president of the Maine Community College System.